Now, I like to think most of the time I'm a pretty smart guy, except when it comes to computers. So everywhere I have ever worked, I always try to befriend someone who is good with computers. Rick Held is that person here. I had a friend like Rick when I worked at U.S. Bank, and I would come to him with all my computer problems. I once told him that my laptop was running very slowly. He asked me a whole plethora of questions. I had no idea what he was asking. And I finally brought my computer to him to look at. One of the first things he did was he hit Control-Alt-Delete, and he clicked on Task Manager. He told me I had way too much running in the background. Applications and other things that did not need to be running were actually slowing down my computer. I guess over time, all this stuff kept accumulating, and I never knew enough to turn them off. I think this sort of thing happens all the time in many ways in our lives. Think of all the cultural messages that are affecting our lives in the background. It affects our everyday lives. Think of all the messages we get about beauty, gender, and race. And if we do not hit Control-Alt-Delete from time to time, we might never be aware of those messages. So there are two concepts that are constantly running in the background of my mind, affecting me. I want to share with you how I examined God and religion in my task manager. So yes, I decided to take on two small things for my last sermon here. When I was living in Milwaukee, I did an internship at a shelter for men who were experiencing homelessness. I was fortunate enough to have a supervisor, Eric, who was an ordained UCC minister. UCC, which means United Church of Christ. Some people say Unitarians considering Christ. He asked me once to write a weekly reflection paper about how I found God at the shelter. Eric, I said, I don't find God here. I don't find God anywhere. I don't believe in God. Now that is one way to get out of writing a weekly paper. When I said those words, what I was rejecting was the classical view of God. The God that is a being, the God that is a person with a gray beard floating around in the heavens somewhere. The God that is all-knowing, all-powerful, the God that is angry from time to time, who has ultimate control over the entire universe. This classical view of God is an application running in the background of our culture. To me, God is really where you find ultimate meaning. To me, God is where you experience transcendence. So the question is not, does this being God exist, or does this being God not exist? The question is really, what is sacred to you? Where do you find the divine in your life? What is ultimate in your life? At times, God is life itself. At times, God is love. At times, God is nature. At times, God is the universe. And at times, God is an unfolding process, or maybe God is sometimes simply within. So there was an instance while I was in seminary in Chicago where I was really forced to think about what religion exactly is. I often stayed at a hostel. The hostel was located in the Loop, actually next to the shaking, screeching L. After eating dinner with a fellow student one evening, I came back to the hostel, and as is my custom, I took the stairs instead of the elevator. And as soon as I opened that door to the stairwell, I heard glorious music, heavenly four-part harmony. What was it? It sounded too good to be a recording. I went up a flight of stairs, and I saw 4 young adults singing, "Be Thou My Vision." When they stopped, I told them that they sounded absolutely beautiful, and I asked if they were part of a religious group. And they said, hesitantly, "Well, sorta." "Well, what are you then?" I asked. "We're Mennonites." Now, the last time I checked, Mennonites were a religious group. They're named after their founder, Menno Simons. He was a German radical Protestant and believed that the Reformation did not go far enough, that true religion should permeate society, that religion should permeate your whole life. So lo and behold, that Christian history course I took in college finally paid off. It turned out that the hymn-singing quartet, they were members of a group that went abroad for 6 months, a mission trip. They went to build houses and teach people to read all across the world. They were in Chicago reacclimating to American culture. Then they asked me if I was religious. I paused. Now, I didn't want them to think I was a fundamentalist or something. And I sheepishly answered, yeah, religious. So here are 5 people, 4 Mennonites coming from life-changing mission trips across the world, and 1 Unitarian Universalist seminarian, all hesitant to claim to be religious. So what is up with this word, religious? It's obvious that religion is a bad word for many people. Of course, Marx said something like, it's the opiate of the masses. And many people, religion is there to only control people. But religion is not that simple. Plain and simple, though, I think we humans invented religion. However, any cultural construction is completely and utterly complex, and it's really impossible to sum up in a few words, let alone half a sermon. But here goes anyway. All cultures, as far as I understand, have what we call religion. One of the oldest known remains preserved in ice of a human being has tattoos all over his body, which were probably religious in nature. And you all have seen and heard about these cave paintings in areas almost inaccessible. They are also religious in nature. But I think religion was not created out of thin air. It was a cultural need to explain not the origins of the cosmos, but the mysterious ultimate reality that we experience. How come we can look up at awe and wonder at a starry night? How come it restores our souls? How come it makes us not only happy, but realize that life is worth living? Life does have meaning. How come we can sing together here and emotions flood us with a deep connection with each other? The regular occurrence of these phenomena, I think, is what makes life worth living. So in a sense, religion, at least symbolically speaking, came to us from the heavens, from the awe and sense of being small flakes chipped off a larger whole. And I also agree that it's very possible that we humans were in smaller groups initially, 100 to 150 people. There may have been some environmental catastrophe at some point where food and water and other things became very, very scarce. It was the groups that could bind together. It was the groups that could cooperate. Those were the ones that survived. Those were the ones that passed on the religious sense to their offspring. So, in a sense, religion made us stronger. Religion made us more adaptable. Religion gave us the ability to survive easier. And in fact, there is a lot of evidence that shows right now in the U.S. that religious people lead healthier lives. Religious people tend to live longer. And religious people have lower levels of stress. So again, at the core of religion is an experience, and an experience of mystery, life-affirming, and a truly human, natural experience. Part of the problem is that ever since the Enlightenment or the Age of Reason, there has been a dominance of rational thought, and it has reduced religion to a mere set of beliefs. So back to the stairwell with the singing Mennonites. After I told them that I was a Unitarian Universalist, then went all the questions. So what is Unitarian Universalism? Well, I said we were a liberal religion that was creedless. And their natural response was, so what do you believe then? Well, I said the Unitarian side was of Puritan stock, that they go way back in our country's history, and they rejected things like predestination, things like the Trinity, and they rejected Calvinism as a whole. And the Universalists, their big deal was with hell. They didn't believe in hell. They believed that God was love. And in the early 1960s, Unitarians and Universalists, they got together, and hence we have Unitarian Universalism. So, and of course, their response was, so what do you believe? There must be something that keeps you all together. Now, at the time, it was right before the Supreme Court's decision on the Defense of Marriage Act. So I said, well, we all believe in gay marriage. But their insistence that we must have a central, like one belief to hold us together, I think is a very Western, compartmentalized, and narrow view of what religion really is. And it is in direct contrast from the reading from the Native American scholar Jack D. Forbes. He says that religion is all-encompassing. It goes everywhere. Religion points beyond belief. Religion connects us to something bigger than our own individual selves. And I do think there is a distinction, too, between different kinds of religion. The conservative religion emphasizes orthodoxy, which literally means correct doctrines or correct teachings. But liberal religion is about orthopraxy, correct living, correct practices. And I want to remind you, too, that the Latin root of the word religion has to do with binding. Religion is relational. It connects us, not only to other people, but to the earth, to the universe, to something grander and much bigger than we are. As Forbes says, nothing that we do we do by ourselves. We do not see by ourselves. We do not hear by ourselves. We do not think, dream, or procreate by ourselves. We do not die by ourselves. Religion teaches us that we are not alone. It binds us to each other and binds us to the universe. I think what is running in our cultural background, is that religion is a set of beliefs, and that type of religion should be turned off. Religion is more than just belief. My religion is that sense of connection that I've had with all of you over the past 2 years. My religion is lobbying for prisoner reform and picking up trash along the river. My religion is driving a little slower so maybe I can save a little gas. My religion is freeing and expansive. My religion is taking the stairs instead of the elevator. My religion makes me realize I need to work on my own selfishness. And my religion prods me on to more, yet preserves the wisdom of our ancestors. My religion is Unitarian Universalism. So as you know, this is my last sermon, and I have been pretty busy traveling, candidating in Canton, New York, and getting ready to move. And I was hoping you wouldn't mind if I took some time right now to write out some thank you notes. Would that be cool? Thank you. You're the best. Wojciech, do you have any thank you note writing music? Thank you, New Mexico, for your beautiful mesas, canyons, mountains, and unending skies. Thank you, Sandia Mountains, for your beautiful pinks at sunset and being a guidepost for my direction east. Thank you, Albuquerque, for being the only major city I know of where roads regularly get blocked with tumbleweeds. Thank you, Mother, for cutting out an article about a man from Albuquerque stealing his mother's pozole from your local Milwaukee newspaper and sending it to me in the mail. And on the clipping, writing, "So what is pozole?" Thank you, First Unitarian donors, who made it possible for myself and other interns to come here and refine our ministerial skills. Thank you, goat heads, for giving me extra exercise by forcing me to walk my bike home with numerous flat tires. They're neither goats nor heads, but wow. Thank you, green and red chili. Now I have another food item to be snobby about. Thank you, branches, for welcoming me and letting me see how you do your unique ministry there. Thank you, New Mexico winter, for making snow special again. And for reminding me how drivers here don't know how to drive in it. Thank you, dry climate, for I rarely see mosquitoes. Thank you, Callie Cohn, Alana Rodriguez, Jane Winkler, and Olivia Herrera for babysitting for my son, Miles. Thank you, Angela, for always having my back and for inviting and encouraging me to live out my calling. Thank you, Christine, for your years of ministerial wisdom and for being so accepting of me bringing Miles to work. Once I apologized, saying, "I'm sorry, but the whole staff was less productive today with Miles here." Then you responded, "Less productive, but happier." And finally, thank you, First Unitarian, for being a wonderful, healthy, spirit-filled community, which it has been a privilege and an honor to serve.
Where I can see you. James, thank you. Thank you for sharing yourself these last 2 years, your learning, your passion for ministry, your music, and your ability to put the water bottle on the cooler. And your willingness to do that. Thank you for introducing us to Ulrika and Miles. Thanks for showing us grace in a hard time and the willingness to overcome disappointment. Thanks for loving our teenagers enough to do the hard work of ministry with them. You have made a lasting difference in our program with them. Blessings. Thank you so much. May the road rise to meet you.